Will Dak Prescott be a Dallas Cowboy in 2025? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. We've got a very special guest. It's a friend of the show who's been on the show multiple times. It's Joey Eggs. You guys know him from Twitter. He is the Thread King. Joey, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, man. It's an honor to be here with you guys. You guys have done such an awesome thing with this show. It's been cool to watch you guys grow it, and it's awesome to be here too. So I'm excited.
And we should make a note that Joey has a new podcast/YouTube channel that's debuting on Tuesday. It is the Blue Star Lunch Hour. Make sure you guys check that out with another friend of the show, John Owning, who's been on several times. So make sure you check out their debut show tomorrow. On today's show, we're going to be discussing some pretty interesting Dak Prescott comments. Joey, I want to start with you. Dak on, I believe this was Friday, made some comments about, hey, I'm just focused on 2024 and we'll see where everything lies in 2025. Did you get the sense that Dak is planning on leaving after the 2024 season?
Oh, man. I definitely got the sense that there is growing, I don't know, frustration or I don't even know what the right word is necessarily for it, but just like kind of almost like I'm tired of having to answer questions about this stuff that, A, I don't really have anything to do with. Like, I'm the quarterback, but also on the other side of that, like, my contract kind of hangs in the balance of all this, and they're going to wait to try to sign me after the season, but then not give me a bunch of resources to go out and, have the best possible season I can have after I've had a great season. There definitely was, it seemed like frustration, or it almost bordered on like apathy, or just like, guys, I don't have the answers for you. Like, I don't know what you expect me to tell you. Like this, it seemed like, this isn't what I would do, but this is what they're doing. So I kind of have to just live with the guys that they put in the locker room with me, is kind of the sentiment that I got for sure.
Landon, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I 100% agree with Joey that it felt like he definitely was sick of answering these questions that he doesn't have a good answer for and doesn't necessarily want to answer, I would even add that it feels like one of those scenes in a movie where you watch the scene, like almost a Rashomon situation, right? Where you watch the scene, you have a little bit of information, but everybody else in the scene has more information than you, right? And you feel like they're kind of speaking without trying to say anything, like especially with regards to the contract stuff. Obviously, he has more information than we do about what's going on there, and he has more information likely than we do about what's going on in the front office with the Cowboys. But it felt like he, A, was sick of talking about it, B, knows that he can't actually give the real answer that he wants to give, and C, is just kind of not interested in playing this game, right? Not interested in playing the game of playing coy and pretending like he doesn't know what's going on. Like, and I think that this is probably why we don't see a ton of Dak interviews during the offseason, because it's a lot of kind of having to dodge questions he either doesn't want to answer or doesn't have a good answer for.
I also wonder if it's just, I mean, he has so much leverage that he doesn't have to be coy. Like, he doesn't have to worry about them trying to trade him if he doesn't give the right answer, or franchise tag or whatever. Like, he can say whatever he wants to say, and there's really no repercussions here. So, Joey, what else did you take away from that Dak interview?
Yeah, I think your point is perfect in that, like, really the combination of both of your points of, like, he knows he's got at least another year of this process. Like, we're pretty certain at this point there's really no point for the contract to get done early at this point. Like, once it got past the start of free agency, he's going to either become a free agent or he's going to get a contract right before the start of the new league year next year. So he knows he's got 12 more months of answering these questions, and he's already tired of it. Like, it feels like he just went through this whole process. You know, it seems like a year ago, even though it's 3 or 4 years ago now, but he's just tired of answering the questions and knows he doesn't really have to answer the questions, because at the end of this season, he's going to go be a free agent, and there's going to be 4 or 5 teams out there that are going to be willing to pay him, you know, an astronomical amount of money to come play quarterback.
Joey, I wanted to ask you a quick question. There was one thing that he said that I thought was really interesting. Someone asked him about his contract, and he said, "I don't want to be the highest paid quarterback in the league necessarily." What were your thoughts on that?
I think it's one of those things where, like, it's hard for him to say, "Oh, well, I'm going to take less money to help my team," and then watch his team refuse to spend any money to help him build a better team. So if he takes less money, it's not like him taking less money is going to provide more flexibility on a salary cap that's going to allow them to sign more players, because they've already shown him they're not going to sign more players. Whether it's their own guys or outside free agents, they're not going to spend that extra money necessarily. They're going to, adjust their cap accounting to where they're still up near the cap, but they're not going to go out and spend that extra money. So why should he take less money? But maybe if he goes out and is a free agent, maybe he doesn't have to be the highest paid quarterback, even though he likely would be if he goes to a team that, has shown they'll spend money to put pieces around the quarterback.
Landon?
I mean, to me, here's what I'll just lay it out. To me, I think the Joneses have gone, and this is what you and I have spoken offline a little bit about, Marcus. To me, I think the Joneses went to him and said, "Hey, we don't have the cash to pay." The cash, as Joey has very eloquently constantly pointed out on Twitter. Make sure you guys read his great threads about this. I don't think we have the cash to pay you, Micah, and CD in one off season. And I think that they have a kind of handshake deal that, okay, the accounting will let you get through this season. We'll re-sign you at the end of the next season. We'll have more cash on hand, hopefully, to pay you this money. And I think ultimately Dak was okay with that deal, but I think that Dak is also pretty pissed about having to carry water for the Joneses because they don't have enough cash to pay him the amount, and he's basically doing them a favor. And I think he's also, pretty upset with the idea that, even in this situation, Joey's right. Like, it's hard not to feel like it's a throwaway season this year, right? Because it's just so underfunded already. Look, anything can happen. This team will still probably win 10 plus games. They'll probably draft great and, do a lot of great things during the regular season. But I think it's going to be hard to convince anybody, including Dak Prescott, obviously, that this season is going to be a season in which they are going to be able to take a major step forward just simply because of team building.
Joey, I wanted to ask you just roughly, if the Cowboys were to get all three of those deals done this offseason, CD, Micah, and Dak, how much cash just this offseason would the Cowboys have to spend?
Oh, I don't know on the signing bonus for Micah, but I think if you base it on where the Tyreek Hill extension was in terms of signing bonus for CD, and Dak's signing bonus last time was $66 million. And I want to say I just still don't think there's been a signing bonus for a quarterback bigger than that. So it would probably be north of that, somewhere in the 70 to 75 million range for him.
Let's call it 75.
Yeah, call it 75 plus call it 30-ish for CD. That's 105 million right there. And you haven't even gotten to Micah, which is probably in that same 25.
It's probably the same, right?
That's exactly. So you're looking at, $130 million or so in cash. And they just took $100 million in cash and dumped it into a natural gas company. So they, like you said, they may not have that $100 million in cash sitting around anymore.
This isn't to say the Cowboys are poor by any means, but they might be a little bit cash poor right now, that they can't afford to give out $140 million in signing bonuses to 3 players in one offseason. I think that's kind of the point that we've been getting to is obviously we think they're going to get these deals done, but they might have to stagger them a little bit in order to kind of free up enough cash to do it. Not cap space, but cash.
Yeah, and they, to a certain extent, they've made their own bed here, right? Because they could have done CD as early as last year, and they could do Dak this year, and then they could do Micah next year and do them all with time left on their contracts, give them extra flexibility and spread the cash out. But they've chosen not to do that for, whatever reason. And they put themselves in this position where they're dealing with this cash situation / that they can call it a cap situation because of the way they handle the accounting.
All right, let's talk some draft because we are in draft week. We're only a couple days away from the draft. Let's talk about what the Cowboys are going to do, not only in round 1, but what's the best strategy overall for them in this draft. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. We've got baseball in full swing right now, and FanDuel is the best place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That is $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. I would suggest going to bet on the Nuggets against my Lakers tonight. The Lakers have absolutely no chance in this series. So if you want a sharp pick, go pick the Nuggets money line tonight. What are you waiting for? Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly. I've been told that I'm a competitive person before. My competitive side absolutely loves Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it before. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist of Monopoly where you play on not just one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends and my family. My sister and her boyfriend absolutely love it. So we're playing all the time together. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like in classic Monopoly. But now I can also heist their vault of riches for myself, and the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to let you know that the Locked On NFL Mock Draft Live show is available now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft show is available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, Joey, we got to talk some draft. Now, we're going to get into what the best strategy is for the Cowboys in rounds 1, rounds 2. But I want to ask you about this social media phenomenon that's been happening today about the idea of the Cowboys drafting a quarterback early, let's say at pick 24. What are just your general thoughts about that plan?
Oh, man. Generally, I think that I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Especially, we just had this conversation last segment about, Dak's going to be back. They've kind of got this arrangement with Dak. Dak's okay with it. He's tired of answering the questions, but it is what it is. If they were to draft a quarterback at the 24th pick in this draft, like all that immediately goes out the window, right? Like all of the, hey, we've got this arrangement. Dak, you're going to be here long-term. Like the one resource, I've said this the last few off seasons since they literally signed nobody. The main resource they have at their disposal in any offseason now to make their team better is their first-round pick. And so if they go use their first-round pick on a player who does not make Dak's life better in any way, shape, or form, and not only that, adds to these dumb questions that he has to answer about his future with the Cowboys and all this other kind of stuff, like all of that goes out the window. So it doesn't make any sense. But like our friend KD said on Twitter, they haven't done very much all offseason that makes very much sense. So it's hard to doubt the possibility.
Landon?
Well, I mean, that line last right there kind of blew my whole take. Is I've now really come around on this. I think it makes plenty of sense with their absolute nonsense offseason that doesn't make any sense, right? With the perfect cap of this, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands offseason would be to draft a quarterback, right? Like, yeah, I mean, obviously for all the reasons Joey just pointed out, it doesn't make any sense. You already traded a 4th round pick for a guy that has probably got as much or more upside as any of the guys that you're going to be able to draft at 24 to get a quarterback. You've got kind of mismatched timelines, all the different things that we talked about, exactly how the team is doing. Like if you're drafting a quarterback, like even more so, if you're drafting a quarterback, you should have the team in place around you already, right? Like you shouldn't have to like have all these holes that you're filling. Those holes should be filled. And the last piece you should be putting in is the rookie quarterback, right? So yeah, it would make total sense in the fact that nothing this offseason has made sense. But in almost any other kind of team building area, I cannot make heads or tails as to why you would want to draft the 6th or 7th best quarterback in a draft class instead of, you know, the obvious play of letting the quarterback that you have ride it out, see if he does what you want him to do. If he doesn't, then, you know, look, you could disagree with whether you feel like the Cowboys should get rid of Dak Prescott or not. I think lots of us would disagree, but at least it makes sense. And you would be doing it in an orderly fashion if you did it at the end of the season when his contract was up, and then, you know, plan to put all your resources in either to upgrading the quarterbacks you have on the roster or going all in to trade up and get a quarterback at the top of the draft next year.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense financially really to do this either, right? One of the reasons why you draft a rookie contract is so you have all this cap space that you can put an awesome team around them. If you're drafting Michael Penix Jr. at 24, well, Dak is what, 56 million this year? Is it 30 something ish million next year, right? So that's 50% of his rookie contract is already. I mean, you're paying an elite quarterback anyways. On top,
which was the problem with Dak's rookie contract.
Yep,
if everyone remembers, we still were paying Tony Romo for a couple of years of that.
Right.
So we've been making that same mistake again, basically.
Yes. And then the other thing with like Bo Nix and Michael Penix is these are older quarterback prospects who, I mean, kind of the idea of drafting these guys is you can get in them, have them play right away because they're so experienced. I don't know if they have the upside of like in Anthony Richardson, who you draft really high because of the developmental traits. And then the last thing is the practice reps. Like I'm already nervous about Trey Lance not having enough practice reps because of Dak and Cooper Rush. If you add another quarterback in, somebody's getting squeezed. And listen, if it's Cooper Rush, it's Cooper Rush. But if it's Trey Lance and Michael Penix as your 2nd and 3rd quarterbacks, one of those guys is only going to get a few reps every single day in practice. And that's just not enough for what you've already paid those two guys.
That's something to consider too with a lot of these guys, and a lot of the other situations involved in including, you know, like the Tyron Smith situation, him being on the move. One of the most important resources nowadays that NFL teams have, you know, players, money, cap space, facilities. One of the most rare and important resources that these NFL teams have are padded snaps, right? Like these are hard limited in the CBA as to how many you're allowed to have per season. And that's something to keep in mind for exactly what Marcus just said. If you don't have the snaps to spread around to these guys, then you're wasting everybody's time and a whole lot of money, right? Because you don't have the opportunity to actually develop these guys the way they need to. You don't have the opportunities to get the guys at the top ready to play in the offenses or defenses that they're going to be playing. So keeping that in mind is that if you do overload a spot in the depth chart, the one thing that you're really going to be wasting is the opportunity to get these guys snaps because you're going to have to spread them out on a much larger number of folks. It's better to have a smaller group that you're concentrating these snaps and have a plan for, because otherwise, you know, it's a wasted pick. You pick these guys and you don't have a plan for how you're going to get them the snaps they need to either get them on the field or to get them up to speed with their offense or defense. And then suddenly they bust out because they didn't even get the opportunity, the real opportunity in the first place to kind of be part of the team.
Joey?
Yeah, I think one of the things that one of the criterias that I have when I think about a first-round pick is they have to have a clear path to the field in their rookie season. And so if you're picking the point you guys made about the financials is perfect, because everybody says you don't want to draft a quarterback when you need one because you get desperate. And there's a point to that. But you lose 25, 50% of the advantage of these rookie quarterbacks by timing it wrong. Now, if you have a quarterback who turns into, one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the league, the way that Dak has, you manage to get through it and you make the playoffs most of the years of his career and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you don't maximize that rookie window, but they had opportunities to maximize that rookie window after all the Tony Romo stuff was gone, and they decided to use Deontay Thompson and those guys.
Old Beasley, Terrence
Williams. We don't even remember the wide receivers that were on that.
Allen Hurns and so it just doesn't make any sense, which is what makes it the most scary, because that would fit very well with this.
The other thing that we haven't even mentioned is, why are you picking a quarterback in the first round for a staff that in all likelihood won't be here next year?
Exactly.
Again, mismatching timelines. Yeah. It's like this whole team, this whole offseason, it just feels like no one knows what an offseason timeline is supposed to be, or that they're all supposed to be, working together towards one common goal. It feels like this offseason, this front office has been split up into 3 different groups, all working on different timelines of what they're trying to achieve. So, in that sense, I guess they could find some common ground that, this doesn't make sense for any of us. Let's do it. Like,
all right, let's talk about what actually is going to happen at 24 and not a quarterback, because it's I trust that they're not actually going to do this year. Now, maybe next year I can understand, but
we'll see.
Not going to happen. Let's talk about the best option for the Cowboys at 24 next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer that you get to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last minutes for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events near you. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are here with Joey Ikes from the Blue Star Lunch Hour podcast. That's going to be coming out on Tuesday, so make sure you check that out. Joey, let's talk some draft before we head out. What do you want to see the Cowboys do at pick number 24? It can be a position, it can be a player or a strategy. What do you want to see them accomplish?
Well, I think the ideal, like the top of the pyramid, is that there's, you guys have talked about a ton of these guys. I've talked about it in different places. There's maybe even more than a handful of potential offensive line candidates in the back half of the first round. And so in an ideal world, they're able to say, hey, we still got 3 or 4 of these guys available. We know not every team behind us is going to take offensive linemen, and they're able to drop back, 6, 7, 8 spots even, because the fact that they're missing that 4th round pick is like, or just that 4th pick within the realm of players that you can expect to play in any sort of role this year. And if you're going to go through an offseason and not address needs, then you're going to have to draft for need, which everybody does anyway. Mm-hmm. And they're one short, it feels like, on picks compared to needs. And so it would be awesome to be able to drop back a little bit, still get an offensive lineman that can start for you on the first day, when they walk into OTAs. But then be able to add another pick to be able to go get a running back or a defensive tackle in the middle part of the draft.
Landon?
Yeah, I mean, again, as this starts to kind of linger on more and more, to me, it feels like getting an opportunity to kind of trade back and get another bite at the apple to get that pick back. And again, as Joey mentioned, it's not even necessarily the 4th round pick, right? It's the 4th pick, like in that kind of front part of the draft. That gives, when you have specifically kind of 4 needs that you would like to get out of there. So it just gives you a little bit of flexibility. First of all, it gives you a little breathing room, right? Like if the windows don't line up exactly right, if you get to the third round and the quality of the position that you have kind of determined you want to target is not where you need it to be, having an opportunity to potentially pivot, take a better player, maybe more of a BPA selection, so that you could then, wait until your fourth pick, whatever, if you're able to trade for one, to kind of make that selection, makes a lot of sense, right? And I mean, we've all done hundreds of these mock drafts at this point, right? And I mean, it's bookmarked on all our things. As soon as we type in the first letter of the mock draft machine, it autofills in all our browsers, right? So we've done this a ton, and I know that there have been lots of times, whether you do the PFF or the ESPN or whatever, the PFN, there's just times when you have the opportunity to trade back and it just doesn't quite line up the way you want it in one of these rounds, and the opportunity to kind of just pivot, wait until the next window to kind of take that the position you want. 9 times out of 10, it's a better scenario. It's a better situation than trying to reach for a Patrick Paul at 24 or one of those situations like where there are guys that you have seen that have been artificially pushed up to some of these windows, but kind of having the ability and that extra pick, like I said, the flexibility to move around gives you the opportunity to get value at these picks while still getting the position you need, as opposed to feeling that pressure, right? And like knowing that you don't have that, suddenly you're gonna have to wait until the 5th round to get your next pick, and if you don't take your tackle here, you're probably not going to get a starter at the position. So I think it just kind of gives you a lot more breathing room.
And I'll say for me, the 2 timelines, if we're going to go with that, like the current one with Dak, and then maybe what's going to happen in 2025 and 26, I think the best strategy here is to take an offensive lineman, probably a center, right? Somebody that can come in, help you right away, but it's also going to help whatever quarterback you have down the road or whatever coaching staff you want to have. We know this front office loves to invest in their offensive line. They almost took an offensive lineman last year in round 1 and Matthew Bergeron. It's why I have a really hard time believing they're going to come out of round 1 with anything other than an offensive lineman, whether it's a tackle, whether it's a center, maybe it's one of those combo tackle guards. It just makes the most sense, probably long-term and short-term to grab one of those guys early. What do you think, Joey?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why you can almost never go wrong with taking an offensive lineman early in the draft, is because most of the time, if a guy is going to be picked up that high, he's relatively scheme agnostic. Like he's not so specific that he only fits in one type of offense. And so because of that, you can plug a guy in and you can know that, like, it's not like a quarterback where if you pick this guy now and then you hire a new coach next year, maybe Mike Zimmer doesn't like the quarterback that you draft this year, but you drafted him for Mike McCarthy. And now that Zimmer's the head coach, he wants to get rid of him, but you're stuck with him because you picked him in the first round. Yeah. Or Dion, right. Or Dion wants to draft Shadur next year and you drafted a quarterback already. Like all that stuff gets all screwed up. Right. So, but an offensive lineman, that's pretty, that's very unlikely to happen. Like a guy who can snap Jackson Powers Johnson or Zach Frazier or Graham Barton, like a head coach is not walking in here in their first year going, yeah, I don't like that center that you just picked in the first round. We got to get rid of him and get a new guy. Exactly. Like almost no matter what scheme it is that they're running, that's not going to happen.
Any final thoughts, Landon?
Yeah. I mean, I'll just add in that I think that we got to remember that sometimes the needs thing works 2 ways, right? Like these guys know what's coming up in the draft. Right. Like it obviously every single year there's guys that kind of show up late in the draft process or show up their final year and kind of insert themselves into this process. But it's not like these teams don't have an idea, months and months ahead of time. Hey, this class has got a dynamite offensive line class. This is a dynamite tackle class. So I think part of this is them fitting their needs to what is in the draft. It's not just a coincidence that the Cowboys keep running into these situations where these drafts are full of needs, full of things that they need, right? They line their needs up so that they let Tyler Biadasz walk, right? Like they say what you want about Tyron Smith. They had a hard cap on how much they were going to pay him because they knew that this tackle class was deep. So I think that is because of that. everything is pointed in that direction for them to take an offensive lineman, because that's what they have allotted this draft to fill their coffers with.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. We post videos every single day over there. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Go follow Joey on Twitter at Joey Ikes. Make sure you check out his new show, the Blue Star Lunch Hour. It'll be debuting on Tuesday, the 23rd. So make sure you check that out. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.